Okay, we're at the family reunion in Portland, Oregon.
No, it's just
We've got some family.
over a certain process, like the person would be over this factory. Yeah, exactly. So my area is the diffusion area. So I know. You know, you're always
Well, it's for Scott. Everybody say hi, Scott.
Oh, hey, Scott. Hey, Scott. Scott. Keep it real. Guess what you're missing?
Yeah.
Is he in Nebraska or?
Yeah, he's still in Nebraska.
I have a roommate that's coming to Omaha. You're not in Kansas. 2 months. Well, a month and a half.
Don't you
You'll probably see him. His name is Jordan Barrick. So Elder Barrick.
Keep your eyes open for him.
He'll be there in late August.
Nobody fought over. I might have known who he was. That's how good it is. No, you can work your way up that way.
Yeah,
But yeah, so we put the layers on the wafer. Don't start it without it. So we've got oxide layers, polysilicon layers, things like that. So that's my area. And so within that, even within my own area, there's different, you might be a nitride person or you might be an oxide person. So when I first started, I was willing with poly, and then I moved to nitride. And then just recently, I do all the special work requests that come through. So I'm splitting up the wafers and running the experiments that people are generating.
Cool.
So this is for what company?
This is for Micron.
Micron.
And what I wanted to do, because they start you out working shift. I want to be the person out there generating the experiments. That's what I originally intended to do. So when I first started and they handed me a toolbox, I think I remember how to use these. That was pretty cool, at least doing maintenance.
Right, no, so, where's my real job?
No, I expected that.
We're going to move in here in the shelter,
I thought it was going to be...
and they've built a fire for Scott. We got all the kids here around the fire. We got Spencer. Say hi to Scott. Say hi to Scott. Okay, so there's Catherine. Say hi, Scott.
Put some elbow grease in there.
You're not going to say hi, Scott? There's Amber, Grandma, and Robert.
Oh, for hi, Scott. Hi, Scott.
We're going to have a little short, well, I don't know how short, it's going to be a family home evening kind of thing. Grandma's going to give us a what? Okay, whatever she has prepared. Talking to. We're going to get a talking to. A lecture.
We're going to get a lecture from Mother.
Family lecture.
And we'll take it from there. Well, we'll just be...
We'll stand and we'll gather wherever.
Well, you have to do that.
Just think, Scott's standing here. This is for Scott.
Okay, Scott, this is for you. Well, I read through a whole bunch of conference talks and different things, looking for something to do a lesson on, and it seemed like I just couldn't, pull it together and settle on any one idea, and so a little bit later, Susan and I were working on the life story of your grandparents, Denny and Les and John, Duke, and Irene. And I just thought from that maybe I could just hit some highlights about them. For those of you who are old enough to remember them, and for those of you who aren't old enough to remember, maybe you'll get an idea of what their lives were like. I guess I'll start with Grandma Jenny. She was a really choice lady. Her mother died when she was 9 months old, and she was raised by her brothers and sisters, and a neighbor lady took her for the first few months after the mother died until she was a little older so that the older sisters could take care of her. But one thing about that family, and all the histories as we read them, I was so impressed with the honesty and integrity that our forebears showed, and how that was important in their lives. And that certainly was true of Grandma Jane. And another thing that really impressed me about her and her life was how devoted she was to Grandpa. And what hard workers they both were. You know, when Grandpa sold his sheep and started farming out on the desert, she was right at his side. She was out there with boots on, trying to, when they first were started to surface irrigate the farms. She was out there with his boots on, trying to walk through the mud, and I just can't believe how she ever did that. But, and herding the sheep. She didn't mention this in her history, but I know it's true that she washed her clothes on a board for 7 years before she got a washing machine. Grandma and Grandpa both were very careful with their money. They didn't spend anything they didn't have, and yet they were so generous with what they had. Grandma wrote Grandpa's history as well as her own. It was all in her own handwriting, you know, to type it from. And she just told so many instances about Grandpa and how he was so resourceful, how he, no matter what bad times they had, he was able to always come out of it, and he always paid his debts. And one thing she told about when he first started farming, after he sold the sheep, he had to borrow $100,000 to start this farming operation. Well, that's not such a lot of money nowadays, but it was a lot more then. And when he went to the bank to borrow the money, they just gave it to him without any question. And the bank assistant that was with him there, he said to the other banker, said, "Well, aren't you going to get a mortgage on this?" And he said, "We don't need to. Just pay." That's how much faith they had in him, because, well, that's the way he'd always lived. And the same with Grandpa Robertson. They were very, very careful with what they had, but they were very generous to all their family, and they were so honest and had so much integrity in their dealings. And when my father first got a job as a watchmaker down in Ogden, well, before he got the job, first of all, he had been to Rock Springs working as an apprentice in the watchmaking, and he had learned the watchmaking from a fellow there that had actually gone to school for it. So he learned quite a lot, and that was kind of to be a temporary job, but the fellow that had trained him went on his honeymoon, and he was gone for a month. And but just before he was going to come back, the owner of the store said, "I'm going to keep you and let this other fellow go." And my dad said, "No," he says, "I won't do that." He says, he's just got married and he needs the job. And besides, I don't want to stay in Rock Springs. So he wasn't going to shove the other guy out of his job just for him to get it. And then he came to Ogden, and he was looking all over for work, and he went to a fellow that had a jewelry store, and he said when he first went there, this fellow was in kind of a bad mood because he had 2 boys that had been working for him, and they had left him and gone and started their own business down the street in competition to their father. So my dad went there and applied for a job, and he was in kind of a bad mood. He just said no, he wasn't interested. So after a while, he went back to just see again if maybe he was interested, and he still said no. And as my dad was walking out the door, there was a young lady came in, and as she asked Mr. Smalley, well, who was that just went out? He said, oh, it's a fellow by the name of Robertson, and he's wanting a job. And she said, oh, I know his two brothers. And she says, they're really a good family. They're really fine people. So the guy called him back and said, okay, with that kind of a recommendation, he gave him a job. My mother was, she's like Grandma Jenny. She was so devoted to my dad that it didn't matter what he said, that was gospel. And I appreciate these qualities in my parents and in Les and Jenny, and I think they've been such a good example to all of us on how we should live. And I know all of you had some special experience with them, and so I'd like you to share something that you special that you remember about your grandparents, that share with the younger generation that are here. Start over here with your grand.
Okay. Well, probably know Grandpa Williams the best. There's so many. I don't know where to.
No.
I should have told you I was
The what? Oh, well, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stories, but he was, of course, developing the desert, and most people figured he owned most of Bingham County, but that wasn't quite true. There was a few thousand acres anyway. But we would always be burning weeds and clearing things off, and so he was always throwing matches and letting fields burn and stuff. And one time, the Idaho Power guy that was kind of following John and I around, watching what we were doing, he also kept my grandfather. These power poles had caught on fire, and he had to get them all put out. And one time he got Grandpa, he walked up to him and said, "Damn it, Les, give me those matches." So. For Roger.
Well, I was just thinking about out there flood irrigating and that, and him taking his safari hat off and letting you drink out of it. You know, the holes in the top, it's sitting there leaking all over.
Yeah, there's the 4 holes, and he'd scoop up the water, and it'd be running out those 4 holes, and he'd get a drink out of that.
And then, of course, you could drink out of it too.
Well, actually,
it tasted great. It was clean, crisp, cold water, you know.
Come right out
Just what you needed.
Oh, I thought it went on that one.
Yeah, I know.
I was up with Grandpa one time. I can't remember how old I was.
It was in the spring of the year, and he was just starting up the pumps. And he got this one started, and took a little bit before the water, you could hear the water working its way up, and kept coming. Pretty soon there's this big gush come out, you know, and I was thirsty. It had been kind of a warm day, and so I just right down there in my hands in the water and just drinking, and all of a sudden there's this stuff coming up. Well, what's that, Grandpa? What's that? Oh, probably just the dead rabbits have been down there all winter.
Well, that's yeah.
Some of you in-laws can contribute something if you'd like to, too. talking maybe at lunch today about how Grandpa Robertson called Cody Toby all the time.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
Well,
Cody
yeah.
Toby. He never...
he didn't have very good hearing, not really, and then he was familiar with the name Toby, but not Cody, and it just never registered with him.
Up there, yeah.
And he always called Cody.
And then when Ben was little, he was chasing after Callie and Cody there at Grandpa and Grandma Robertson's house, and they had a gravel driveway, and Ben just biffed it right in the gravel, face plant and everything, gets up, wipes off his face, and heads off again, and Grandpa came in just laughing over that, and he says, I've never seen anything like that. I thought for sure he'd cry, but nope, he just picks himself up and off he goes, and he thought that was pretty good. He was pretty impressed with that. They like to go fishing.
Oh, yeah.
Grandpa and Uncle Cliff.
Oh, yeah.
I had a good one about Uncle Cliff, too.
See, my dad worked in that jewelry store for about 25 years, and then he sold it and moved to Blackfoot and bought a farm on the south end of town. Actually, he had worked on that farm as a young man for Peter J. Johnston. And my Uncle Cliff, for quite a few years, had just rented that farm and run it. Well, when they moved up here, that was the greatest thing for my dad's health that ever happened, because all those years in the jewelry store as a watchmaker and working at the bench fixing watches, and then he was tied down a lot. Once he owned the store himself, he didn't take time to go out for lunch or anything, and he didn't eat very good. So we moved up to Blackfoot. He was out working in the fresh air and the sunshine. He's right there. We had 3 good meals a day. And anytime Uncle Cliff and my dad decided they wanted to go fishing, they just went fishing. It was a great life. And I'm sure that added years to his life. He would have died a young man if he hadn't gotten out of that pawn shop jewelry store.
I remember you and Grandpa Ken got us went fishing one day, and he had some other people. He had that old yellow GMC truck, and yeah, I think it had a camper shell on it, but I'm not sure. Maybe he had his boat with us, but he stopped and picked us up and took us to McTucker Flats. I didn't know that's what that was at the time, but we started driving out towards the reservoir or the river over this long flat. And we were thinking, this is really great, we're going to drive right up to the river. And pretty soon he realized that he had driven at least 800 feet into a mud bog. I mean, all of a sudden we looked down and it was just mud. And we looked back and he'd been driving across this mud. And the momentum was great, but as soon as he stopped, we were done. And it was in the middle of the afternoon. Do you remember this?
No, I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, maybe you didn't come up.
I don't think I was there.
There was me and brother, I'm not sure who. But we stopped and we went and threw our poles out into the river and didn't worry about it too much for a little while. Thinking, well, we better probably think about maybe, because we weren't really stuck yet, but well, man, we were the rest of the afternoon, and nobody had 4-wheel drives back then. You just didn't go and
Splurge.
winch or anything like that. You were, a few extra logs and a shovel and whatever else you could muster up, and it was a long time before we got out of there, but we dug ourselves back out of that, one little branch at a time. So
Well, Grandpa Robertson and Grandpa
pushing and
they were both very resourceful. They'd figure out a way to do it. My mother always said, if you wanted something better than new, you broke it and had Grandpa fix it. If he was a good fixer. I'd like to just say something about my mother, too, and her music. As a little child, she wanted so badly to learn. And her older sisters had all had lessons, but somehow they were too poor when she was of the age to do it. But they had all they had was an old reed organ that you had to pump with your feet. And she was picking out songs, with one hand, and mostly hymns. And the Sunday school superintendent came to my grandfather and said, "We sure need somebody to play for Sunday school. Does Irene play?" "Oh, sure," he says. And he came home and he told her, "They want you to play for Sunday school." Well, she wanted to do it in the worst way. But she knew that she didn't really know how to play well enough. And she just cried and she'd say, "Papa, you know I can't play." And he'd just say, "Well, you can if you want to." And she really did want to. And so the Sunday school chorister came to the house and helped her with one hymn so she could play it with two hands, and that was Catch the Sunshine. A lot of you probably don't know it. It was in the old hymn book.
What was it called again?
Catch the Sunshine.
Catch the
Catch
Sunshine.
the sunshine. Anyway, she worked on that hymn till she could play it. And the next Sunday she went to church and she accompanied that song. And she was so frightened. She just was too weak to get off the piano bench when she was done. But the next week she practiced it some more and learned a new one. And that's how she learned to play.
Like Doug.
Bit by bit.
Just like Doug.
Song.
I've been working on stuff like that.
And a little bit later on, there was a man, I don't know if it was in her ward, but it was in her community, who played the violin. And she said she didn't know at the time, but she realized afterwards that he did this especially for her. But he came to her and he said, "I just really need to practice my violin. Will you accompany me?" He said, "I'll come over to your house and you accompany me and we'll practice." And she said he would stop her and give her a little pointer and help her out. But that went on for some time until she became a really, really good accompanist. She could sight read anything. She'd sit down and just play it without knowing it before, and it was because of the kind of training she had. But I think it was a talent too, and also, especially that she had this great desire to do it. So that's always been a great motivator and impressed me a lot about my mother. Well, I just want to say that I appreciate so much the heritage that I have through my parents and grandparents, and also for your father and his wonderful parents. And I appreciate so much all the blessings that I have through these things, and especially through the gospel of Jesus Christ. Anybody want to tell a story about their dad?
I just wanted to say about Grandpa Robertson. I remember going on a pheasant hunting. We went pheasant hunting, and I got to go along, and I was old enough then to participate. I didn't get anything, but I remember some of the other brothers getting some things. And Robertson had this little 20 gauge shotgun, single shot hinge action thing, and he gave that to me, that shotgun, and I still have it. And Mark, I have this lock thing on it, and Mark is always wanting to, let's go shoot that thing. We've done it a couple times, but I still have that shotgun.
Stick in half.
Yeah, I still have that little shotgun. And I did get a pheasant with it once, but it was never when I was out pheasant hunting, really. It was when I was out plowing. I was out on the tractor plowing, and had it in the cab with me, that shotgun, because I'd always see pheasants out there. And I saw one running down the furrow, so I jumped out of the tractor and stalked it down and shot it. And that was the only pheasant I ever got. Took it home and cleaned it, and tasted awful. Not because it sat in the cab of the tractor half the That's the only pheasant I ever had.
Shoot on the ground.
When you ran him over with the tractor first, maybe, huh?
Run him over with a tractor. No, it wasn't field kill. Road kill. Rural kill. I did get it with the gun, yeah. Not with a tractor.
You promise?
I promise. I don't remember if it flew or not before I shot it, but I think it did.
Well, there's lots of stories about Grandpa and his Williams and his witching stick. His doodle bug, as he called it. And I just remember the one time, well, it's in his later years, he knew he didn't have much time left, and he had witched from home this, he used his gold as the pilot. He had this gold ring, and he used that as a pilot, and he claimed that out at Caribou Mountain, well, they had done some mining out there in the earlier years, and that there was a big vein of gold out there because it was a strong attraction. And so I remember John and I went with him, and we got the horse. I think it was probably Molly in the back of the pickup. And
Molly?
Yeah.
Oh, Molly was a doodle bug.
No, it was the horse.
Doodle bug name.
so anyway, we drove out there and went up close to up to that mountain. Grandpa was so, well, he'd already had heart attacks. I was afraid he was going to have one that day. He was determined to go up with this witching stick and find the mother lode up there. And so he narrowed it down. He says, this is where it is. And of course, later John and I went and dug up and made a claim on that. We played around up there digging holes and blasting dynamite, and of course we never found any gold. But the thing is, there is gold up there, and I don't doubt that there is, but we're not rich because we didn't keep digging. And, we didn't dig long enough to spend enough money.
So let that be.
It's always just a little further. That gold, that's the way gold is. It's always, if you haven't found it, if you didn't dig far enough, and you just keep digging.
Just a little further.
Just a little further. If you've done and there's stories, about the diamond or something, the guy that didn't, the diamond mine, that he didn't, he gave up and quit, and somebody else come along and found it.
Kind of like missionary work, he's knocking on more door.
That's the way life is.
Well, we were just talking this afternoon about Grandpa Robertson, Grandpa Robertson, and I was really young, but I do have some very vague memories of sitting under the apple tree in their house in Blackfoot eating just green apples, and just, oh, they tasted so awful, but anyway, but they're there, so you gotta eat them. And I just remember playing with the Tinker Toys and the Lincoln Logs in their living room there. That's about the extent of my memories of worship.
Tinker Toys.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, Grandma Williams had, or Robertson, when we'd go over there, she had, she never had a lack of string and rubber bands and things that she had saved.
Buttons.
And buttons, and there's just a lot of things that she just hang on to because you never know when you're going to need them. And that's what Grandpa Williams was, too, was the same way.
Grandpa Robertson.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty much people come out of the Depression had something to do with that. But she taught us how to make out of these thread spools. We would take these thread spools and a stick, one of the Tinker Toys or a pencil, and run an elastic through it and have a little matchstick on the other end. We could wind it up and then sit it on the floor and let it run and it would just run across the room. And we had some of things like that. We didn't need these computer games. Yeah, we didn't need these fancy toys. We got by with those little things.
Yeah, let that be a lesson.
Yeah.
Don't you forget it.
I noticed with my grandfather's, the little toy things that Grandma Robertson taught us about, the button and the thread.
Yep.
Yeah.
The girls had hours and hours and hours on fun of just the button and the
Yeah,
thread.
spinning it. They don't do that
Your
anymore.
hair caught in it, I know.
Yeah, you gotta keep the hair out of it.
Oh, yeah, that's the lesson we learned. Keep the hair out of it, or you're really in trouble.
But that, you know, I've taught the girls a lot of those things where anymore they're not entertained by their dolls. All the funny little toys that they got at my house in a big box that I'd like to find in the trash can these days. I'm tired of picking them up. But, you know, they like the strings and the buttons and the bubbles.
I remember the cards. She saved all those Christmas cards.
Christmas cards,
And we were always cutting out these Christmas cards and pasting them onto something, I don't know.
Well, have you ever gone to somebody's house or got out some of your raspberries maybe that you put up and asked to have wheat germ put on them?
Yeah?
I've never had wheat germ on.
Nobody. Oh, they,
No.
No, after that.
Since then, I've never had wheat germ on anything.
Nobody offered.
Grandma would put wheat germ on it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a good.
No, not a fresh ones out of a jar.
Out of the jar.
Yeah.
The wheat germ was crunchy, and it had a sweet crunchiness to it. Always so good.
But you tell somebody you put wheat germ on it and they'll think you're
Or tiger's milk.
Yeah, oh, I love Tiger's Milk.
I said, I can't remember where I was. I was sitting there working at the nurse's station, and I said, oh, I could go for a glass of Tiger's Milk right now, and we look at my, huh? What are you talking about? I said, oh, you guys haven't had it yet. I'll have to make some and bring some just for you guys to drink.
What is Tiger's
Milk?
Oh, no.
Well, it's milk
Milk and molasses.
and extra powdered milk in it, I think, and orange juice
Oh, yeah, I remember
and molasses.
Orange
And
juice.
Burgee.
Burgee.
And you blend this all up and you drink it. It's just loaded with vitamins.
And it's just loaded with something.
My liver in way shape.
It lasted me a long time. Yeah.
Oh, and her cookies, her Halloween
Oh.
cookies were famous.
Famous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, me and Roger were holding.
You know, she didn't use any sugar.
Yeah, let's go get some of
She always
Grandma's
had-
green bean cookies.
Yeah. How she made them is that, well, first of all, you have to know that Grandpa built that grocery store down there by their place, which is now Neves Printing. And so, he would always gather up the old produce that they were going to throw out so he could give it to the cows. But Grandma had to go through all of it and pick out what was good for them before she threw the rest of the cows. And there was a lot of good stuff. I mean, there would be heads of lettuce and cabbage that were perfectly good. You know, you might have to peel a leaf off the outside. And grapes, and grapefruit, and oranges.
And
Mother
pomegranate.
would go, she would
Couldn't help the
wash
pomegranate.
every grape and sort that out carefully, take all the good ones, and she had a lot more than they could eat. She'd cook them and make juice, and that's what she used to sweeten her other fruit was this grape juice. You know, it'd be those green seedless grapes. So they're really sweet, and they made this sweet juice that she used as a sweetener. And so, now, Halloween time,
Her
oh yeah,
grocery bill was just nothing.
yeah, and there'd be a lot of bananas. Well, she couldn't throw these bananas away, and the cows don't like bananas too well. So she would make these cookies with bananas and whole wheat and wheat germ and brewer's yeast and, well, I don't know. She put everything she thought was really nutritious. She put into these cookies, and then she'd freeze them. And at Halloween time, she just had her freezer full of these cookies, and she'd get them out, and all the neighborhood kids would come, and they loved them. They did. They would just thank her over and over again for her cookies. And the kids, of course, grandkids had a lot of them too. Every time they went there, you
And
had
those kids never knew she got them out of the bin in the back of the grocery store.
The ingredients were it.
Yeah, the ingredients for them right out of the...
Well, I have to say, we were the recipients of a lot of that stuff. That the mothers worked so hard that I would not have spent my time picking over those grapes so carefully like she did. I would figure my time was worth more than that, but to her, she couldn't waste anything. And like I say, we were a recipient of a lot of that. We ate a lot of the grapefruit and vegetables and stuff that came down because she picked them over so carefully, and it was her hard work.
And she would say, this is, we were talking about this story just recently, that she'd always say, Dewey's Scotch by birth, and I'm Scotch by inclination.
Yeah. Do you remember saying that?
Oh, yes, that was the thing. Oh, I have to tell you one other famous Scotch joke. My dad had this thing about sweating. He thought if you got sick, he would get in a hot tub and get it so hot that he'd sweat, and that would cure whatever sickness he had. He loved to get in a hot tub, and he would get it so hot. And as he got older, and he'd do that, sometimes he would faint. He'd get the water so hot. And Mother would plead with him not to do that. Because, I mean, little fragile lady that she was, how could she get him out of the bathtub if he fainted in there? So this one time, this was just before they moved out to our place, out by me. He wanted to get in the hot tub, and she was pleading with him to not do it. But he was determined that that's what he needed, and so he did it. And this is, she was so mild. She would no more say a swear word than anything in the world. And anything, like I said, anything Daddy said, that was gospel truth, you know. She was glad for him to be the leader of the family. She didn't want to be. She, you know, he was up on a pedestal to her. But this one time she said, "You stubborn Scotchman." And I thought that was so funny, because that was the strongest explanation for him that she could have, or criticism she could have done.
Really laid it on him there.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't true.
The only time I ever heard that Grandpa Williams said, I don't remember exactly the details. Something John isn't here to correct the story, but he you know what happened. Well, John's told the story before, but John hit him on the, Grandpa was holding the nail. I don't know what happened, but John hit him with a tool of some sort. And Grandpa thought it was a real stupid move on John's part, because all he said was, "Damn it, boy." That's all he said.
How many times he said it with regret when he actually got his hand hit with that pole?
The Grand wrote a paper about that. A little paper telling about Grandmother.
Yeah.
I think you all have copies of it. It's in that book, Life History I did for your dad.
You know, there's something I remember about Dad. I mean, he was such a hard worker, and he spent so much time out in the shop and working on different pieces of machinery and caterpillars and tractors and you name it, he was working on it. But I remember when I was really little, he used to come in talking about the TD-18. And for the longest time, I could not figure out what kind of animal had 18 titties. And finally I asked him, and he took me outside and pointed to the tractor. See, it says TD-18. Oh! But I remember him not really caring that much about the animals, but when we'd have horses out in the front yard, especially that one little Shetland we had that was so tiny and she was gray in color, and we called her Mousy, and him riding her, and his legs dragging her around. I remember that. And all the trips to Yellowstone.
Oh, yeah.
And in the boat, going out fishing. And trips to Lava Hot Springs. He'd just come in during the day and just say, "Okay, we're going, get ready."
Yeah.
And we had to be out the door, and lo and behold, Mom would have a picnic all fixed, and Grandma and Grandpa would go, and Grandma would have her fried chicken done, which was just excellent. And we would go and have a picnic after with the family, and just go to Lava Hot Springs the afternoon or the evening. And it was so enjoyable, and just the sound of the car, and everybody sleeping in the car, and they were having to carry us all in the house after we got home. And we were all so tired and asleep. Seemed like the forever ride home. But that was some of the neat things that I remember. In the flat.
Well, Grandpa Williams really liked wrestling. He liked to watch wrestling. He'd always show us moves and stuff.
He was a wrestler.
And he wrestled in the college, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
One day he come to me and he asked me, he says, Doug, have you seen that professional wrestling on TV? And I says, yeah, I've seen that. And he says, you know, it belittles one's intelligence to watch the damn stuff. Belittles one's intelligence.
What? I don't...
It belittles one's intelligence to watch the stuff.
He didn't think that was
He didn't think that was pretty. That's really not wrestling.
I remember being so amazed at watching him pop his teeth out.
He just liked to do that with all the little kids.
I remember walking in the house one day, and I had I think it was a Tootsie Roll pop or something I had in my mouth, and he reached out and he grabbed that and started to pull, and I held my teeth together. I didn't want him to take that. I just remember him pulling and tugging on that sucker. Been mowing the lawn for him. I wasn't old enough that I had the same experience as John and LeGrand and them guys working with him so much, but the working I did with him was mowing their lawn. And he's getting pretty old then, and he was always pretty stubborn. And I remember him telling me that I had to keep lowering that lawnmower blade down. I had to mow the grass shorter so I'd get the dandelions. And I kind of, I tried to convince him that wasn't going to work. He insisted that I lower that down to the lowest setting until it was
chopping dirt.
There's a lot of things John and I didn't agree with him on, too. I mean, we could write a book on that.
I remember going out to one field that I was supposed to be plowing, and the hydraulic hose broke on the tractor to the plow. And I sat there forever waiting, and it was hot and dusty, and I was hungry, and I was thirsty. And he was supposed to bring me my lunch, and he never showed up. I didn't even have water with me. And I was starting to get rather disgusted with the whole thing. And yeah, I didn't have a driver's license, but I could drive the tractor in the field. So I got disgusted. Finally, threw my arms in the air. I said, "To heck with this." I went, unhitched the plow, and took the hydraulic hose with me. It was broken. Drove clear into the shop. Got me a new hydraulic hose that was the same size, which was a couple of the same thing. So I drove back out, hooked up the plow again, and it just got started plowing again when here comes Grandpa. Well, there was a few choice words of, "How dare you waste all that gas to go clear in there and get a hydraulic hose?" And I thought, well, how dare you waste my time making me sit out here this whole time when you could have had it fixed and I would have had half this field done. That's all I remember about that. But I remember getting the biggest ball out, taking that tractor and going clearing into the shop from that field with the tractor, wasting all that gas.
I remember how he used to let us ride in the back of the pickup. We'd climb up on those rails. I don't know what they were. We'd be clear up there, and I would climb as high as I could, so the wind would just be blowing. And I mean, think of kids today.
Well, you wouldn't let your kids...
I wouldn't let my kids do that, but I would climb up there till I was just, top rung was right here at my knees.
And we're going down the road?
Going down the road, just enjoying this wind and blowing. Yeah.
50 miles an hour, yeah.
Yeah. Look at me fly.
Yeah, it's amazing we survived, really.
Yeah.
There's so many things we did that Grandpa let us do that were just really dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
We got away with it.
The comfort that he bought, we were used to that. I think about some of the things we did with that. and a brake had come loose, and we didn't, and
We lost the whole
yeah, we dropped the whole, we dropped the whole pump down low one time. But there were some times we could have got really hurt bad, and we just didn't think anything of it.
You know, I still think this is a dream, but I know it really happened. I was in the pickup with Grandpa Williams, and he'd always pull off the side of the road and scare me to death because it's just right on the edge. And you know, he just, one time he got really close to the edge and the whole pickup just rolled to the side. And he opened up the door, we climbed, I remember climbing out, I must have been awful small because I keep thinking, no, this has got to be a dream, but it was real. We climbed out, he opened it up, we climbed out, and he was just standing there staring at his pickup in the ditch, you know, on its side. But he wasn't going fast, but he got on the edge and we just rolled into the ditch. And he wasn't even excited. He goes, okay, let's climb on out. I remember how calm he was. He was so calm, and I was like, we're going to die. Well, this has all been jigging around, hasn't it? Sorry, Scott.
Is that what this is for?
Yeah, this is for Scott. Say hi, Scott.
Hi, Scott. Hi, Scott.
Yeah.
Hi, Scott.
See everybody. No, tell us.
Well, you know, the gas pumps out back there, you had premium and regular and diesel. Roger and I, we'd turn the pumps on and have a gas fight. A static spark would have ended it right there.
Yeah, you would have been dead.
I don't know, sick, stupid.
Not this stupid.
Not stupid.
Because young enough to be stupid and old enough to hurt yourself doing it.
Yeah. Well, there's these kids in Spokane.
We just barely.
Just barely.
That they went to.
Well, what did you do that for?
Well, I think you want to, Brandon, I think I've done my part.
Grandpa Robertson was a Scottish heritage, and Grandma Jenny Williams was also. So we found out the Lindsays. Well, Lindsay's is Scottish. Annie can tell us about it. Here in Portland, it's every year.
Every year
And
in
it
Portland, they
just
do
this last,
games.
it was this last Friday or Saturday.
Third Saturday in July, if anybody's ever interested.
This is something you really ought to come and see.
Portland, Highland,
Scottish Highland Games.
Scottish Highland Games. It's all Scottish. They had. I didn't get to go. I was working, but
Well, what
they
they do,
had all kinds of this big bands of bagpipes and drums and stuff, and it was. And the games and everything. Tell them about
what
it.
they did there, is they have all the what they're called pipe bands, because they got all the bagpipes and whatnot.
Oh, I might.
Well, basically, wait, just a second. Connie and Julianne and I went on Saturday, so that's why we know. But, are cool. But what else they did is they do the caber toss, which is they have this big log really that's 20 feet tall, weighs like 150.
20 feet?
Yeah, 20 feet tall, 150 pounds. And what, do you want to demonstrate how they have to do it? How they have to do it?
Oh, I got to see this.
We did that.
Okay, imagine you have, it's huge.
Just a minute, Connie.
It's 20
Connie is talking. We need to have your attention.
It's like 20 feet tall, and these guys are big guys. And this thing weighs 150 pounds, and they're in kilts. And so they've got this big thing. Of course, this isn't big enough, but they get it down there, and they get clear down, and they're resting it against their shoulder like this. And so, and so they pick it up, and they've got their head against it like this. And then they have to run balancing this thing until they get momentum, and then they can go like this and toss the thing. And it has to go up, and you want it to get up to 12 o'clock and go down.
Land those down.
It goes on
Make a full rotation.
and then that's a good toss.
But most of the time they weren't getting it, so it would just kind of go up and then it would fall to the side, and they would see, you know, how many degrees they would get from it. And so these guys, you have to go through one round, you have to use the same caber, this big 20-foot pole. And a fellow that had been important in the games had died last October, so they had the McTarnahan memorial caber, and it broke midway through the round. So they had to do it again. So they brought one in. It's kind of like a rodeo horse. You just get whatever they bring in. And this pole was kind of bent. And so nobody ever got it to go over. It never did. One went out to 9 o'clock, but that's all that they got. But these guys do it for fun, I guess. So they have the caber toss. They also have a stone. This is in the Portland games. It's this big, huge stone that has kind of a little indentation on it, and so they have to lift that stone, then they get it up, and then they set it on their head, and they run, and then they toss that thing. And then they have the big hammer toss, which is this see how tough you are, and toss it. And then the hammer throw they do. And the reason they do it,
the story behind the caber toss is, I don't remember what king it was. It was some Scottish king.
The games in general.
Yeah. But it started that this king, the caber toss was, the king wanted to find out who were the strongest men. So he get all these big guys to come throw this log.
Because he wanted bodyguards. So
Bodyguards, yeah. And then the kilt mile, where they have to run a mile in the kilt, was, you know, to get the fastest runners to be the carriers, kind of thing, and then so on and so forth.
Well, one of the legends is that one young man really was running well, and he was at the lead, and had to go up the mountain. That was the final part of it. And he was running really well, but his brother was coming along. You guys, you brothers will probably appreciate this. And he could feel that his brother was right behind him. And he just knew he didn't have the power, and he felt his brother's grab his kilt, and he was twisted out of that thing and went on up the hill. Well, back in those days, they didn't wear anything under their kilts. And so they said, but in this kilted mile in the Portland games, they had to keep the kilts on clear through to the end.
And show me the gesture they made with the kilt.
The thing, okay, if you've ever seen Braveheart, there's this one scene where the Scottish all moon the British, where they flip up their kilts. And so this one guy, he didn't make it all the way with the caber toss, or it fell back, and he was really mad. So he turns around to the caber.
They're all wearing shorts, by the way.
Yes. And so the announcer guy's like, oh, that's just some form of respect or something. And so they also had, they had all this type of dancing where they do the jig and hop on one leg. I don't know how
The Irish keep their hands down, and they're doing the dance. But the Scottish,
they do the whole la-la thing.
Yeah, they're the la-la-ra-ra.
And the thing about it, those dances all come from legend too. The sword dances, a dance that they would do before they went out to battle, and they would jump and dance over the sword, and if you ended up touching the sword, that was not a good omen for the battle. And then Highland Swing was done because it was a victory dance, like at the end of the touchdown, They danced on the dead man's shield, so that's what that came from. And so a lot of the things they were doing are from legend and are really from long ago, but then I must say, as I watched the opening ceremonies, it was really quite stirring to see that big bagpipe and drum band go by. It was really, to see the marches of clans.
There was just so many. They had a lot of clans coming, and they had a lot of clans represented. And like Mom said, it was just really stirring. I just felt a kinship with these people. Everybody was there, and they were all really jolly and wanted to be there. And
could be part of the beer.
It could have been the alcohol.
They hide us
But I
back.
think I got just a feeling of kinship, and it was just a great experience that we do have a heritage, and we do come from somewhere, and it was it was interesting to think back on all the brothers that came over from Scotland together, and the family that they established here, and their great posterity, and like Mom said, it was stirring, and I still kind of get a little choked up with it, and I did when they were doing the bagpipes, like, oh, that's my family.
Well, and then for all the shops, and of course they have like all the kilts and the clan colors and all this stuff. And they happen to have like these little info books on all the different clans. So Lindsay bought a Robertson one and a Lindsay one. So, you know, we could always make copies of it.
Yeah.
If you want.
The Robertsons are actually a part of the larger clan. I have
Well,
them out
and
there.
it's like Dawn kind of both are. And they have, they're also derived from, I think, his death too. Donna's something, it's Don something.
I don't know how to pronounce the last part.
And then
Lindsay Campbell, she's really.
yeah, Crawford, Crawford, Lindsay and Crawford. So, you know, they're really neat because you learn more about where you come from and you get to see what happened back then. And so, I mean, the tickets, they're really cheap tickets, I think, but,
Maybe we'll have to send out,
They think it was free, huh?
send out an email to you about that time that's going to be coming up, and you can come over here.
third Saturday of July every year. And they do one in Woodland, California too, but I don't know when that one is.
So they do a Robertson reunion every, like, 10 years.
Every other,
Every
Robertson.
2 years, I think it is.
That's like great, they're down
They, I haven't heard of one. We still have cousins reunions, me and my cousins. Because all of my dad's family are gone now, except for one sister. But when I was growing up, the Robertson family got together a lot, like this, like what we're doing. I mean, we'd go on picnics and, I mean, we didn't call it a reunion. Somebody just said, hey, let's do it, you know, and they would all get together in the summer. I had lots of cousins because my dad came from a family of 10 children, and they all had, you know, some of them had bigger families, some were smaller, but I had a lot of cousins anyway, and we felt quite close. We're still having reunions. But the larger Robertson